Well, this is going to be an interesting one. On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Circs podcast, I'm going to be talking about Vagina from the 1999 Super Deluxe release. This vault track is estimated to have been recorded in November of 1981 at Prince's Kiowa Trail home studio in Chanhassen, Minnesota. The track is a bare-bones guitar and vocals, and a bit rough around the edges. It feels more like a sketch to me than a completely and fully realized song, which I guess makes sense because it's a vault track and it was never released, so obviously by definition it is not a completely and fully realized song yet. More of, like I said, a sketch. However, with the title like Vagina, it is bound to draw attention to itself, no matter whether it was documented on written pages, word of mouth. And it's been rumored in the past that, like Money Don't Grow on Trees, Vagina was potentially written for the forthcoming Hookers or Vanity 6 debut album. This has lent some credence because Prince had originally tried to get Denise Matthews, who was recruited to lead the reincarnated version of the Hookers, Vanity 6, to call herself Vagina. Spelled vagina, but pronounced Vagina. Needless to say, Denise declined to be called Vagina, and she and Prince agreed ultimately that she would be dubbed Vanity, and thus the name and the group Vanity 6 was born. So with the song titled Vagina, Prince's potential protege lead singer of his girl group named Vagina, I think that's where the connection had previously been made and thought why this could have been potentially written for the Vanity 6 project. I don't really have anything more to say about that because the lyrics don't really point to that being truth, but I could see why people would jump to that conclusion. So the sort of funny thing about this song is that it's not nearly as dirty as you might suspect, based off of the title alone. Keep in mind, this is peak nasty Prince we're talking about here. Dirty Mind, Controversy, 1999, and Purple Rain all included some objectionable lyrics, not to mention the sort of songs that he would be writing for Vanity 6's debut. Quite some blue material there, and even an unreleased material that he was writing for Vanity 6, such as Vibrator, one of the dirtier songs in Prince's unofficially released catalog. But, he got plenty nasty in the 90s as well. There's a lot of songs in the 90s that one could point to being evidence that Prince never really lost that aspect of his creativity and of his recording personality. It's more after he became a Jehovah's Witness in the late 90s is where we really saw a decline in the quote-unquote nasty Prince. A vault song by the name of Vagina immediately calls to mind a song that might be celebrating in graphic detail the wonders of the female anatomy. Instead, we get a bit of a story song where the word vagina is instead used as a proper noun, just like Prince had planned it to be for Denise. Vagina was half boy, half girl. Her hair was shorter than mine. She told me she lived in the city. I never knew when she was lying. I first saw her in a gay bar, kissing another girl. I told her, baby, I'm looking for a turn-on, and she said, welcome to my world. So in this first verse, Prince describes Vagina as half boy, half girl, which immediately sets the listener's minds to wonder about what he really means. Of course, it could mean someone who is trans or transitioning between sexes. I know that trans men and women don't consider themselves half anything. But you have to keep in mind this was written in 1981, long before the number of identifiable genders and sexualities reached double digits. I'm no expert by any means on the subject, so if I say something incorrect, please know I'm not doing it out of willful ignorance. It's just not my area of expertise. I've tried to become educated on the subject, but I don't live it, so I don't know it as deeply as those who are living it and dealing with it every day of their lives. In the next line of the song, Prince says, her hair was shorter than mine. So you note that here he uses the female pronoun. So at the very least, the narrator sees Vagina as a woman or a female, in spite of her being half boy, half girl. So in this case, the narrator is assuming Vagina's gender as female. And saying that her hair was shorter than his suggests that he's calling out what he perceives to be a masculine physical trait, her short hair. And also this is a line where, if you are thinking of it as potentially being sung by the Hookers or Vanity Six and coming from the mouth of a woman, her hair was shorter than mine, I guess could work if it's simply just to imply that it's shorter than Vanity's hair, I guess. But when it's coming from the perspective of a man singing it, it adds more, there's more weight to that line. Meaning like she definitely, or has a very masculine haircut. And he's pointing that out here in the lyrics as a physical trait that he's trying to help the listener identify with why Vagina is a half boy, half girl, or at least gives off the appearance of someone who is kind of straddling that line between two genders. So, bottom line, we don't really know what Vagina identifies as in terms of their gender or even their sexuality. So what we're getting is just through the lens of the narrator, and that's all we have to go with, and that's all we have to go by. Since he saw her in a gay bar in the city kissing another girl, that kind of explains, and again, he's using the female pronoun, so then that at least minimally helps identify this person as having a fluid sexuality, attracted to potentially men and women. That's often considered bisexual. There's many other terms that can be used to identify someone who is attracted to just about any form of gender. Vagina was half boy, half girl. She taught me how to dance. Used to do it with the TV on, a political romance. Half boy, half girl, best of both worlds. And that's repeated. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the half boy, half girl line could also be referring to someone who has characteristics and mannerisms of both cisgenders. Her hair was short, so I don't take this to mean Vagina has both male and female sex organs, which on its surface you might think that, being half boy, half girl. And if they are transsexual, this possibly could be seen as a half and half scenario coming from a straight cisgendered male. Even if that language would not likely be used today or should not be used today to accurately reflect this person's gender. So again, 41 years ago, we have evolved quite a bit on this topic in terms of what we understand and what are the proper nomenclature and the proper language to use. The words that we're using in 2022, even just saying cisgender, that is not something that was used to describe someone who was born a certain gender and identifies as that gender. So I just think that there's a lot that we have to consider as an aspect of the time it was written, and it's difficult and maybe not what was intended if we're trying to apply our understanding of these topics to a 41-year-old song. So in the bridge, he says, Vagina was half boy, half girl. She had her own way of doing things. My baby, she should have been king, 'cause she was so strong but so understanding. I think the key thing to identify here is, again, him using masculine language to describe Vagina, which he has, like I said, assumed her gender. She had her own way of doing things. She should have been king, not queen, mind you. She should have been king because she was so strong but so understanding. So I think that language is very intentional to, again, like with the short hairline, to apply masculine characteristics and masculine language to what the narrator is perceiving to be a woman, which, again, also kind of leads to the potential interpretation of half boy, half girl, meaning more of a very masculine woman. In the next verse, Vagina was half boy, half girl. You never told me how you got your name. I guess you wanted a little fame. Well, I guess you got what you wanted. You got what you wanted now. So here Prince wants to know how Vagina got her name. And that's a damn good question. It never gets answered in the song, but it's a damn good question. He implies here that her sexuality and appearance is potentially a put-on for fame. Or maybe she's aligning herself with certain individuals in order to gain a little fame. It's a pretty cynical verse, especially with the line, you got what you wanted, you got what you wanted. I don't know if this really means that, if the narrator is Prince, the famous person, or soon-to-be famous person in this case, or if it's just, again, trying to gain fame through their looks, their appearance, just trying to stand out. And again, that's a pretty cynical way of looking at it, like Vagina's cutting her hair short and acting a certain way and looking a certain way and dressing a certain way just to be noticed. But then again, it was the 80s. And this was a really big time for gender-bending appearances in popular culture, specifically in music. David Bowie was the one of the godfathers of that in the 70s. Boy George and Annie Lennox were also very big examples of appearances. Boy George dressed and tried to look as feminine as he could. Annie Lennox during, the peak Eurythmics. Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, Here Comes the Rain era. Cut her hair very short, wore suits, just really pushed the boundaries of typical female attire. And Prince. Can't forget about the man whose song I'm talking about here. He was, ahead of either of them, technically, by his dress code in the Dirty Mind controversy era. And then into the 1999 Purple Rain, it became more masculine, but still adding a lot of lace and frilly textures that were more typically suited for female performers. So there's a little bit of that going on in the popular culture, in society, in this narrow aspect of society, which is, musical performances and performance art. So maybe that's what he's referring to here as well, wanting a little fame and trying to stand out from the crowd. And apparently Vagina got what they wanted. Half boy, half girl, best of both worlds. He repeats as the song goes into its fade out. So that's Vagina. It's a very interesting song lyrically. Musically, I really dig it. Its simplicity, it's very rock-based. At a time when Prince was making very electronic-based music. It has kind of a throwback sound to it, like almost like a garage rock sound to it. But, like in the spirit of a song like Lola by the Kinks, that was more of a song about somebody who was presenting as one gender but was actually another, so more like cross-dressing. I get the sense from this song and these lyrics that vagina is who they are. Again, assuming the gender female based off of the lyrics written by Prince. But that, today, who knows what proper gender would be used to identify vagina. It's based off of whatever they choose and whatever they identify as. Maybe it would have been female still. I don't know. But if we have to assume based off of what the narrator's saying about her, she's female, but she also has very masculine attributes. It's, again, potentially vagina could be trans, male to female, or potentially female to male. We don't have enough details about that. I mean, if it's female to male trans and he's using the female pronoun, that would be incorrect. But it's 1981. And if it's male to female trans, then you have to assume that the narrator then is at least bisexual. And it just begs a lot of questions. So I think that there's a lot of unanswered questions for this song in terms of who vagina is. But, the whole vibe of it is being the narrator meets somebody who really intrigues him, is interested in them, and spends a little time with that person and realizes that maybe this person is potentially using the narrator, or else using their sexuality and their appearance to gain fame. Which, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's a very cynical look at it. So this is a song that I would love some feedback on. I would love to hear people's thoughts on the song. I would love to hear how you interpret the song, how you interpret who vagina is. And this could also be framed based off of your own experiences and who you've known and met in your life. And maybe I'm missing something key in here that unlocks who vagina is and what they're all about. And I would appreciate the feedback if that is the case. So let me know. You can reach me at presserwine.net. Social media, I'm on Twitter. Hopefully I will be back on Facebook and Instagram at some point in the near future. And again, I'm Jason Brenninger, and this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.